I'm Jeannie Kelly, your credit coach, and we're on Credit Over Coffee podcast. And I have Denise Panza. Totally excited to have you tonight because we're going to talk about reverse mortgages. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, I always love having you. And I'm asking about this because, Denise, you know what? I don't know what it is. A lot of people are calling with this question. So I don't know if it's because they're trying to figure out when they're, reaching that age of retirement and they're worried because they still have some credit card debts, but they might not owe any money or have a very small mortgage. So I want to talk to you about what is a reverse mortgage? Let's just dive into that.
It's basically the opposite of a regular mortgage. So a regular mortgage, you're making a monthly payment to pay off this obligation, but a reverse mortgage is actually giving you money every month to help you do whatever it is that you need to do, whether it's not make any payments at all, whether it's give you a chunk of money up front to pay off debt, to pay off medical bills. Maybe you're in arrears with your mortgage, have you catch up with your mortgage.
Oh.
Lots of different benefits.
Okay, so you can get a lump sum end payments if there's enough money?
Mostly it's a lump sum and then not make any monthly payments on
Okay.
on this mortgage.
Okay, so a lot you can do, and it can help people stay in their home if they want to.
That's huge because a lot of
Yes.
people think about it. I know that as we get older, right? I want to live in my home for the rest of my life. I don't want to go into a nursing home. And this is, not that I would have to, but I'm saying if it ever came to that, my option would be to stay in my home. That's where you feel most at peace, right? And some people can't do that because they can't afford the monthly expenses that come with, remaining in their house. So a reverse mortgage can really allow that to happen.
And what kind of requirements or what age do you have to be?
So there's three things that dictate whether or not you qualify for a reverse mortgage. You have to be 62 years of age. We need to know the value of the home, the current value of the home, and then we need to know what you owe on the home. So it does not have to be a free and clear home. You could have a balance.
What happens if you're 62 on the dot, right? And I'm thinking you're going to live at least till 100.
Yes.
So, that's still a long time. And would the money run out? What happens?
So that's a good example. I gave a reverse mortgage to my mother on her 62nd birthday. So she turned 62. She did have a mortgage on her house. She did have a bunch of equity. And when you do the math, it's a calculation. We just plug in these three things: the value of the home, the date of birth, and the current balance on it. And it'll come back and give you what the options are if there are options. For my mother, she's been in that house for 10 years. She's never had to make a mortgage payment. Yes, she has to make her real estate, pay her taxes every year, and she has to pay her homeowners every year. But she's been there for 10 years with no mortgage payment, and hopefully she'll be there for another 30 without making a housing payment.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah, that really can help a lot of people.
I think so.
100%.
I'm a cheerleader for reverse mortgages.
Well, obviously, if you did that for your mom, you know what I mean?
Right.
That obviously big fan of it. And so the primary benefits.
The primary benefits are just not having to make a housing expense.
Yeah.
Also, again, say somebody, I had another client she had just lost her husband. She was a stay-at-home her whole entire life. They were married for 60 years. And unfortunately, he had a cash business mostly. So she didn't have a lot of liquid assets. And she just didn't have anything to make the payments. They lived in a big house and the taxes were really high. So it gave her the ability to not that she was going to live in this giant $1 million home forever, but it gave her the ability to after just losing the love of her life to kind of just, reevaluate things, where she wanted to go next, what her next move was. And we were able to give her enough money to cover the taxes, to cover the homeowner's insurance, to give her, a monthly allowance that she could, eat and survive and whatnot until she decided what her next game plan was.
So that leads me to another question. Do you have to stay in it then? So for her, let's say she said, okay, this helped me for, let's even say she stayed 3 years and that amount of money gave her peace of mind. What happens if she's well, now there's still so much, she didn't take, let's say, everything that would have been available. If there's still money, how do you get out of it? If
That's
you're
easy. It's just so the beautiful thing about a reverse mortgage is you still hold title to your house. There's no fear that it's not like when you sign your papers at the closing that all of a sudden you're handing your house over to HUD. Your title is staying in your name. So you're protected. It's your home. And then at that time, when the time comes that you want to, all right, now I'm ready to sell, you just get a payoff like you would any other house, mortgage. You get a payoff, and then you sell the house, and we pay off the reverse mortgage, and the rest of the cash goes in her pocket.
almost like having a traditional mortgage. Like if
Correct.
you were to sell the house, there's still money due on it. So it'd be the same thing, getting that
Exactly.
payoff. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, what would be the downside, the risks?
I don't know of any, but sometimes when I talk about it, some people are like, oh, well, the closing costs are so expensive. That's the biggest thing I get. Yes, there's closing costs, but guess what? They're built and financed into the loan. There's only one out-of-pocket expense, and it's the appraisal fee of, say, $500. But is it really that? I mean, every loan has closing costs. Maybe they're a little bit higher on a reverse mortgage, but again, they're built and financed into the loan. So it's not like you're pulling this money out of your pocket. But again, you're not having to make a mortgage payment. And a lot of folks get a big chunk of money. They can go on vacation. They can just enjoy, we think of it as the last chapter of your life, right? It's going to be a long last chapter, 62 to 102, but like enjoy it to the fullest. Go on vacations, put your grandkids through college, start a business, do whatever you want, because the money is yours to do as you please.
Okay, so now let me ask you this. Let's say someone takes a reverse mortgage and they've been in there they've used it for 10 years and then they pass away.
Right.
But the let's say there's still, like, what happens? Like,
okay, yes,
to inherit for the children?
Correct.
Because I know, I think that's the big fear for a lot of people. They want to give money, like they wanted to give the house to the kids. Like, what happens?
Right. So whatever's left would go to the estate, and they have, typically I think it's like 3 months to kind of figure out what their game plan is going to be. Are they going to pay off the mortgage? Are they going to sell the house? Are they going to refinance the house? You have three options basically. So it's just goes straight to the kids. The title goes, they just get to do whatever they need to do with the house. And the best part is that they'll never owe, say the individual lived there for 30 years and you're thinking, oh my gosh, now this mortgage has to be over the value of the home. It can never, ever be over the value of the home. So the children will never owe more than what the mortgage is. So there's no, you know what I mean? There's no negative towards the children. I think that some people, I know from my brothers and I, when we gave the reverse mortgage to my mother, we didn't care. Like at any point down the road, we don't care if there's any equity in her house. You know what I mean? Like that's not important to us. All that was important to us was that she just remain in her home for as long as she possibly can. I think that some of the hangups are from potentially children that were hoping that the equity in their home was going to be left to them. But at the end of the day, it should just be about, the peace of mind of their parent, being able to stay.
Of course. I mean, I really think I get asked about them. And of course, I always refer out because I know nothing about them. And that's why I wanted to bring this up. What's going on? This way people can listen to the podcast. And it could be during these hard times, sometimes individuals just feel like, I can't believe I'm going to have to leave my home because I'm not able to afford it. But they have hundreds of thousands in equity just sitting there. And just, because they're thinking, well, if I take out a mortgage at this point, I'm not going to be able to make that payment. But this is totally reverse.
It is.
We got to get our mind thinking about that. And it's a good option. I don't think people think about it enough. And
I agree.
I wanted to have you on, Denise. And if you did for your mom, I love and trust you. So I think it's just so important to think about that for if a parent wants to stay in their home, and instead of, maybe you're even helping your parent a lot, you could just stop that and say, hey, let's do this. And
I've had like the kids will come to me and say, hey, can we just talk about a reverse mortgage? Because maybe, they're, a young family and they're having to give so much money to their parents that it's actually starting to affect, their finances, and that they actually are, a cheerleader for it too. And they're actually suggesting to their parent that maybe you should take this because we can't help anymore financially.
right. And I think 62, that's so young.
It is actually. Yeah.
60, it's not like you're saying, oh, you got to wait till you're 75. Not that that's even old, but I'm just saying 62, it gives people a lot of options if they're thinking of wanting to retire, if they're, contractors working hard and they feel like, I don't know if I can work till 65, 66. This can really help them.
That's a good point.
With a lot of things. Yeah.
Yes. And also like a couple of them that I've done recently were for women who lost their husbands, and maybe they worked part-time or they didn't work at all. So that's when this could really, really come into play and really benefit and help a situation.
Right. And so, Denise, where do people contact you to ask you more about reverse mortgages? And of course, you do regular mortgages. So where do we find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. Just type in Denise, last name Panza, Denise Panza. My cell phone number is 203-942-6845.
Thank you so much. I'll have your links below too in the podcast. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie, for letting me talk about this.
I love it. A lot of great information today.
Okay.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Bye.